Hey everyone, thanks for having me. My name is Kathy, as you guys know, and today I'll be talking about convergence of atoms and bits. As a quick introduction, I'm the founder and CEO of LockBio. This is my second venture-backed biotech and healthcare company. I actually started my first when I was in my first year at University of Toronto, just right up the street. I'm from Mississauga, so it's always nice to be home here in Toronto. And before I begin on my talk, this is a little bit different than what I typically talk about at these conferences. I typically talk about tech, healthcare, maybe a little bit of VC, but I think this is such a pressing issue and a really interesting topic that'll affect every part of our daily lives in the future, in the decades to come. So I think it's important that we start this conversation now. But before we get started on the talk, I do want to give a shout out to my family, who's somewhere in the dark audience, who's here to watch my talk. This is the first time that they've come to anything that I've spoken at since the start of my career. So please clap loudly at the end, or right now too. So they'll be impressed and they'll come back to more of the things that I do in the future. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, let's get started. So, quick history lesson. In 1953, we created the first hydrogen bomb and we discovered the double helix. This essentially enabled humankind to split the atom and rewrite the cell. And the reason why that's significant is because it's called the twin nuclei problem, and it's coined by Eric Weinstein, a friend and president of Teal Capital. It's essentially when a species is able to distort reality so much that we could face extinction. And I don't think enough people are talking about this. I actually think this is more pressing and more important than a lot of the things that we're kind of distracted by these days. And no shade to anybody, love every part of technology, but there are enough neobanks out here, there are enough blockchain applications. I think it's time that we focus on the convergence of the technologies that we've built in the digital world and the physical world around us. And here we talk about the atom, the cell, and the internet. There's a really cool quote from Peter Thiel. We wanted flying cars, instead we got 140 characters. I think that's all about to change in the next few decades, and I hope that out of my talk today, for the people in the audience today, and also for the people that are watching via video or online, that this talk inspires you to create something that is at the convergence of atoms and bits that will improve humanity. For me, I want to talk about one area in particular in biology, which I personally have more experience with, and I hope that you guys can be inspired from this talk and really see the realm of possibility out there with these new technologies that are very important and have the capacity to change humankind as we know it. So when we split the atom and rewrite the cell, we have these new godlike powers as humanity. And what that means is these are things that we can use to either improve humankind for good or destroy all of society, which is very scary. But oftentimes humankind we don't have the wisdom to really know what to do with these technologies. I mean, with splitting the atom, we created nuclear weapons, and we went through wars and a lot of geopolitical tension to really figure out how to control this technology and use it for good rather than evil. Now, the next wave of technology that I think will really change humankind is in biology, and it particularly involves genetics and possibly gene editing and other technologies that will change living organisms as we know it forever. But we don't know what the outcome would look like, similar to where we were in the 50s and 60s with splitting the atom and making fusion reactions. We had no idea where that was going to take us between World War II to the Manhattan Project. I think we're about to face the same with the biology space. And I hope out of this talk you guys can all start to think about this more, because this will impact all of our lives for decades and centuries to come. And quick background on myself, so you get to have a little bit more context on my lens on this. I started my first company when I was 18 years old, when I was in my first year studying bioinformatics at the University of Toronto. I was working with a very talented professor, Dr. Roth, in the molecular genetics department, and I started a company called Genomics that then led me to drop out of school. And with that company, I sold services and products to pharmaceutical companies. biotechnology companies around the world in the US, Europe, and Asia. So I have some experience in both academia, for-profit companies, and also some insights on pharma companies I've sold to. But what I can say throughout that whole experience and experiences I've had after that is that the infrastructure in biology to create new technologies within biology is simply not ready to handle such a powerful technology that we know as gene editing. Gene editing, understanding the genome, and manipulating cells in living organisms is such a powerful technology that right now the systems that we have in place in biology, like academia, pharma, biotech, militaries, simply not equipped to handle it. I'll break it down a little bit more for you guys who are not as well versed in biology. And academia, it's driven by grants, publishing papers, and with pharmaceutical companies, the mandate is to create a drug within a 7-year playbook of getting FDA approval and then selling said drug. With biotech companies and healthcare services, you have to, same with pharma companies, you have to increase shareholder value. There's a mandate to increase profits, and et cetera. And with militaries, of course, there are biases when it comes to the relationships with the political agenda of the country. So I think within these systems that we have in biology, it simply does not inspire a lot of creatives and young innovators to come into this industry. Typically, biology is associated with people in lab coats or PhDs in Boston making a drug and then selling a drug through a pharmacy. But really, what I like for this space to evolve into is that as a place where young innovators and creative minds can come in and create new realities with visions that they have within biology. Meanwhile, in tech, there are so many great organizations that enable moonshot ideas to be created and really to create new things that change humankind for good without the immediate pressure to create shareholder value or to publish a paper or apply for a grant, which severely limits your creativity. When I was doing the Teal Fellowship, I noticed that 90 or 95% of my peers were all in the tech space, whether it's software, hardware, AI, VR. Those are all spaces where you can, as a creative, young, motivated person, you can create a new reality and create a product that you can visualize within a short amount of time. Versus in biotech, it's traditionally, there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of prerequisites and things like that before you can really start something. I mean, with AI, you have the Vector Institute right here in Toronto, which is awesome. You have OpenAI, Vicarious, you have the Elon Musk type organizations like Neuralink and SpaceX that enable just long-term research without the immediate pressures of confined systems. And several others in blockchain and the arts. So I think there's definitely space to create the infrastructure for biology, especially now that we have such immense power to change humanity for good. And just a little bit more on that point, healthcare is not really the same as biology. Healthcare is really a system that we've created to provide healthcare services or to create new drugs and sell these drugs. It's often muddied with profits and immediate shareholder value. So I really want you guys to think about biology as more of an art than a science, because I think that's truly what it is, along with other fundamental technologies that we've seen evolve over the years. So I actually made this deck super last second. I totally did not make this chart or this timeline, but I gave credit to the person who made it at the bottom right corner, so please do not cancel me. I just think that it's a really cool diagram of the history of genomics and synthetic biology. Over the years, over the last, I want to say 10 years or so, the cost for genome sequencing has lowered by 1,000 times. And what that has enabled us to do is essentially read the DNA, the code of life in all living organisms, whether it's humans, animals, plants. And that enabled a huge variety of different applications that have changed the way we understand living organisms, as well as preventing disease and curing disease. And the first part of this trend of understanding genomics is being able to read the cell. So as I mentioned, sequencing enables us to really read the DNA of the living organisms that we sequence. And some of the applications that we've seen that I've tapped into in my early days of running Genomics was preventing disease. With genetic testing, we're able to now take a person's genetic code and understand their predisposition to common diseases, such as cancers even, and be able to prevent them instead of having them happen, then treating them afterwards. This is incredible because it poses a lot of philosophical questions of, is there free will? Is everything predetermined? I personally think we still have a little bit of free will, but this is another really interesting intersection of our current understanding of biology and where we're heading as humankind. And later on, there were also applications of ancestry by great companies like Ancestry DNA, 23andMe, to really understand, using your genetic code, where your ancestors are from, where your family is from, and that has opened a lot of doors, like finding old siblings and other fun things. But I think what's really exciting right now is that we're no longer in 2015 where we're just seeing the boom of the genetic testing era. We're now able to rewrite the cell. So beyond reading the cell, we can actually write the cell. And what that means is we're able to use technologies such as CRISPR and gene drives to change the genetic code of a living organism forever, and possibly reverse it, but right now it's forever. And that's really scary, because while there are great applications for this technology, such as gene therapies, being able to use CRISPR to change a mutation that causes disease in your body, there are also some other questionable applications for CRISPR, which I'll get into later on. Another area that is really exciting for being able to rewrite the cell is synthetic biology. Synthetic biology is actually where my last company, Genomics, is primarily operating in now. Essentially, we're able to use the genetic code, modify it in a living organism, such as an animal or a cell line or even a crop, and be able to optimize the outcome of that living organism to produce a desired effect that we would like. So for example, GMOs are a form of being able to genetically modify the code of a plant and being able to make it a better crop that yields more for farmers and for consumers. There are also very similar applications for enzymes, for proteins, and antibodies. This is a really good quote by one of my early investors and a friend, Arvind Gupta. Biology is the most powerful technology ever created. DNA is software, protein are hardware, and cells are factories. I think this is incredible because this is a system that nature has created for us. And because now as humankind we're able to rewrite the cell, we're able to program all life around us via cells. And that could mean a lot of different things. And I think right now is the best time to start thinking about what that means, how to regulate it as a society, and not just leaving that to the hands of existing regulators like the FDA, but really biology affects all of us. From our own bodies to the food that we eat, to the animals around us, to the ecosystem, we should all be thinking more about how being able to reprogram biology, how that'll affect the lives around us, how we should do that in a controlled and positive way and improve our lives for the better in the future. Some fun examples that I have here that I wanted to share with you guys. You can use CRISPR to make glow-in-the-dark bunnies. So that's one example of a fun application that I really like because I love bunnies. But more importantly, there's a technology now called the gene drive, which it's a simple concept, but sounds a little complicated. But I'll try my best to break it down. Essentially, this technology is able to take a desired mutation and insert it into the germline cells of a species, and that just means the reproductive cells of that species. Now being able to pass down the desired trait to 100% of their offspring in the future. Now with mosquitoes, a lot of mosquitoes can carry malaria, which kills a lot of people every single year. And there are certain mutations that actually make the mosquitoes not be able to carry malaria. And with the gene drive technology, when mosquitoes mate now, they can actually have a homozygous trait being expressed in their offspring, which basically means all of their offspring will no longer be able to carry malaria, which sounds great, right? But there are now a lot of ethical concerns about if this technology is truly ethical, because maybe sometimes with mosquitoes, they can cross borders all they want, and there's nothing you can really do about it, and it could actually change entire ecosystems with unknown outcomes. So it's a very powerful technology, and I personally don't think there's enough conversation being had about this technology. So I hope that changes. I hope that this talk brings a more fresh lens to everybody here that's looking at different areas of technology and what that means for the future of humankind. And of course, I can't have this talk without mentioning the CRISPR-edited babies from China. This was the first time that, that human embryos were met with gene editing technologies like CRISPR to eliminate an HIV gene. This caused a lot of controversy, a lot of debate within the scientific community. I just wanted to show you guys because this is really important as the industry and the entire space evolves. To go back to my earlier point, I think biology is a form of technology, which is a form of art. Ultimately, we're creating something new, we're creating something that has never existed before, and I don't think it should be restricted to people in lab coats, working in labs, PhDs from Boston who are just making drugs. I truly think that biology will affect every part of our daily lives and our own bodies for decades and generations to come. I will leave you guys with a quote that I really like from one of my favorite movies, Dead Poet Society. Medicine, law, business, engineering. These are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. So as you guys go out there in the real world, as you build new technologies with software, biology, hardware, anything that you do, I hope you do it with a form of art and love for humanity. And that's all. Thank you so much. And I made a pun, tying together atoms and bits.
Unbelievable work. I know the Thai family is happy that they are here and saw that. Kathy, don't go anywhere. While they're setting up there, I wanted to take 2 questions. We do it a little differently here at the Scale Up stage. If you've just joining us, it is an interactive stage where you can interact with the speakers. And I'll even give you a chance to be a speaker if you stick around long enough. It could be you. So we're going to take 2 questions. Anyone have a question for Kathy? Kathy, really creating a philosophical discussion full of ethics and morals tied up under the guise of technology. Deep conversation happening up there. Anyone have a question for Kathy? Yeah, we have one in the front. Here it is, coming up for you. Stand up, say your name.
Hi, my name's Jason. I head up digital at the Ontario Science Centre, and I was really taken by your talk, and I was wondering if you could speak more to how art and has kind of influenced your own life and the work that you do as well, and in a bit more detail.
Yeah. So growing up, I played the piano. I actually love philosophy. So I was a big fan of the humanities on top of my pursuits in science and biology. I always thought that the intersection of humanities, which is a form of art, and understanding what the meaning of life is, intersected well with the quick developments that we see in technology and biology. Because I think as humans, we have great advances. We have great advances in engineering, in science, in medicine. But the question is, do we have the wisdom to be able to handle all of the technology that comes with it? And so I've always been interested in that. Since I was a little kid, I would enroll in college university level courses to study philosophy at University of Pennsylvania. And in high school, I took 6 philosophy courses. So that's always been a huge passion of mine. And now tying together, another pun, tying together everything that I've worked on so far in biology, in tech, in venture capital, with my love for philosophy has enabled me to be able to give this talk, and I think it'll drive my future ambitions.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kathy Tai, thank you.
Thank you.